What's up, everybody? Do you sometimes feel lost, maybe unsure what you should do, how to proceed? Do you look for ways just to distract yourself because you're dissatisfied? Well, today you're in luck because we're going to talk about how to find your way in this quick fix, offering you some tips so you can find your way in life and be happy. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Danny, always here with Randy. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, Danny.
So, what do you think about your way? Do you have a way?
As I get older, I definitely am finding it. It took a long time. And when I was young, no idea whatsoever. Like zero. For most of my life, probably until I was in my mid 30s, I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I feel like when I was young, it's like you're kind of like just in the stream going with the current, right? Like wherever things happen to take you, instead of really being like intentional.
Hmm.
And like I do think as you get older, it does get maybe easier, but I'm always surprised too by the fact you have to constantly course correct, even when you're on that, even when you have a way, you still have to constantly like keep it in mind and keep active
Well, because it,
to
it
maintain
comes and goes. Like sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. And I think
it.
finding your way kind of goes hand in hand with having vision about your life. And there's that idea that a man without a vision will perish. So like when you don't have that, you can feel completely lost. And when I was younger,
Yeah.
specifically, I used to get green with envy when there were people who knew what they were supposed to do and they knew their way and they knew their
Yeah.
path and they were young. Like that used to, I was so envious. It was insane.
Yeah, their life just seems easier, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
crazy. It really does. It's like, damn, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
All right. My first one is actually something that Nietzsche reminds us of, and thus speaks Zarathustra. So Zarathustra says when somebody asks him about the way, he says, this is my way, where is yours? For the way, like the one way does not exist. And so Nietzsche reminds us that it has to be unique to us. It has to be our own path that we walk in life. That we can't rely on others. We can't rely on the world just to make a path for us because it'll never be ours. It'll always be, in some sense, like wanting. And I think most of us discover this in life at some point when we realize that all the things we were doing because people expected of us just don't amount to our happiness or don't help us.
Yeah, that one's critical. I mean, I lost my a lot of time pursuing other people's goals and following their ways, thinking that maybe I could fake my way by following their way. And it just doesn't work. But I think that's kind of a learning experience that a lot of people have to do in order to figure out that it is your own way. So that one's great.
Yeah.
My first one is get quiet and listen to your heart. And this is something that I've been getting better at. And I have to say, there's like an instant hack that will make you so good at this. It's doing Wim Hof breathing. Like I've been
Oh,
doing,
really?
yeah, I found this 10-week Wim Hof breathing course, just a video series, and I've been doing that. And man, if you want to get quiet and like really go deep and really listen to your internal guidance system, like this is the way to do it. I
What
mean, if you don't
what
want to
is
do that,
it?
so basically,
Uh,
you're almost hyperventilating, and then you're holding your
uh,
breath. And when you're holding your breath, it accesses some deeper parts of your nervous system and allows you to really focus. And it's just words can't do it justice. Like you have to
yeah,
experience it, and then you're like, literally, you do it one time, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is something else, like next level. So,
oh, that's cool.
yeah, so
I'll have to
that's
look
something
it up.
definitely worthwhile. I'll actually, yeah, I'll share it with you.
Cool. I like that one too though, because you make a good point about, listening to your heart and like actually listening to yourself. Like, our I think what was it? I think it was when we were reading a book by Martha Beck. She mentioned that too about how like our body, like our emotions, our feelings, all that stuff tells actually is like good indications sometimes of like maybe we're doing the wrong thing, interacting with the wrong people, on the wrong path, but like we don't often listen to it. We kind of like rationalize or we ignore it, and instead of actually like focusing and understanding what it's trying to tell us.
It's such a good point because we get like all the calamities in our life happen because we just don't listen to ourselves. And it just gets worse.
Yeah.
Like the more we don't listen to ourselves, the worse it gets until like it just goes crazy. So the earlier you can listen to
Yeah.
yourself, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? We just like our own worst enemies always.
Hmm.
I like that. It's a good one. Um, My second one is one we mentioned a lot, but it's worth mentioning again. Keeping in mind the dichotomy of control we talked about from the Stoics, which is keeping in mind what's actually within our control, what's within our power, and what's not. Because I think a lot of times this is also what kind of derails us when we're trying to find our way. Is we focus on things that are outside of our power or our influence, and so we end up kind of not feeling sort of disheartened, or maybe we feel like depressed or lost, or we failed because of things that are outside of our influence, things we can't control.
That's a great one. And even so much as just focusing on what's in your control now. Like all these people have these grand visions of what their life want to be like, and they get all bummed out because they can't do that thing they need to do 10 years in the future now. And it's like, yeah, just focus on what's in your control now. What can you do now? And then just do that, and that'll get you to the next spot. And that's a great one.
Yeah, isn't that funny when people are like, I want this, and then they want it right now. And it's like, well, dude, that's like, you got to learn a whole new thing and do a whole it's going to take a while, but it's doable. It's always doable, but
absolutely. But one step at a time. Yeah. So my next one is pursue what you're good at. So this comes down to something called your gift. And it's basically what you're the best at with the least amount of effort. So a lot of people get caught in the trap of pursuing their passions or going after money or all these different things. But really, if you just pursue what you're good at, like what you're naturally gifted at, and become very, very good at that, you're going to eclipse everybody else on the planet, because that's literally the thing you were meant to do. Like you're already given a gift. And if you can perfect that gift, then that's something else. So I think that's part of finding your way, is finding what you're the best at with the least amount of effort and going after that.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think like the when you look back at like Aristotle and ancient Greeks that focused on character, part of their idea of a good life too was cultivation of talents, and making ourselves more skilled and better at what we're already kind of naturally gifted. And it makes sense because it just makes what you do easier. You're already kind of prepped for it in a sense. You must already have an inclination towards it. So yeah, I like that
Well,
one.
it's crazy because like back then, that was like the common idea. Like in the Bible, it talks about finding your gift. It never talks about following your passions. It never talks about education. Like all this BS that we're so concerned about nowadays doesn't talk about that. But like, and plus, like one of the 10 commandments is like, don't envy what other people have. Like that type of stuff. And it's like, that's the number one thing we do nowadays. Everybody's on Facebook and Instagram and whatever, just envying what everyone else has. So it's just like,
instead of just doing what you're good at,
just do what you're good at. Simple. You're already good at it. And if you put a little bit of work behind it, you'll probably be the best ever.
Yeah. I think it's a good one. I guess, well, I think my last one too, which is, I think don't neglect your mental health, because I think this is something I think a lot of us do engage in. We get uncomfortable, so we try and distract ourselves. We're depressed, we try and distract ourselves. We're negative, and we end up doing a lot of things that are really distract us and lead us away from our path, lead us away from the way we should be going, and throw us off course. And I think, if we focus on our mental health, we can keep ourselves positive, be sort of healthy. We can also then have the energy and the will to then stay on our path and do the things necessary that we have to do.
Well, yeah, you got to take care of yourself first. And that's like foremost importance. And then once you get that stuff right, when you're in a better frame of mind, it's so much easier to do this stuff anyways. If you're trying to do it and you don't have the right frame of mind, it's going to be like impossible. But then you get the right frame of mind and you do that. And like, there's such a stigma around mental health, and eventually that'll be something that people just get over. But like, I've gone to counselors, Danny's gone to counselors, we journal, we've had bouts of depression, and quite honestly, just chatting with a friend once or twice a week, like we do on this podcast, is one of the most helpful practices we've ever had for mental health.
It's way better than a therapist.
Yeah.
Way more helpful.
And the price ain't half bad either.
No, it's not. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So that brings me to my last one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which is don't give up. So this one is, listen, I told you earlier, when I was young, I had no idea what my way was. But it comes from like little iterations, little changes, trying something. If it works, keep it. If it doesn't work, toss it, and just don't give up, because eventually you'll find it. And once you find it, you can look back and see how all those other things that didn't work out led you to where you are today. And thank goodness they didn't work out, because where you are today is amazing. But you have to get through that stuff. So don't give up. That's my last one.
I like that one. It's a good one to end on, because I think, it's one of the things that we tend to sort of think immediately when things aren't going our way is that we should just abandon it. But a lot of times, right? Like, I
You know what they
it's
say, if
funny.
at first you don't succeed, quit.
Quit. Yeah. No, I think a lot of people have that thought, right? And if you just stick with it over time, and especially if it's something you keep coming back to, that's something you need to do or should be doing. And it just takes time. You have to give yourself time to be patient. So I like that one. It's going in. So that everybody should hopefully have a better sense of how to find their way, stay on their path, be happy, live the right life for themselves. It's the Existential Stoic Podcast with Fix. We'll be back later with a full-length episode. Check us out on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Like, subscribe, share. It helps us out a lot. And until later, then, it's Randy.
Later, Danny.